Welcome to our today's chemistry class. In our class today, we are going to talk about percentage composition of an element in a compound. Every compound contains more than one element. So, what portion is occupied by this particular element and what other portion is occupied by this other element? So that's what we are going to calculate in percentage. Now let's look at it. It has steps to be followed. If you don't understand these three steps, you will not be able to calculate it correctly. The first step here is write the correct chemical formula of the compound. Now, in one of those classes that we had before today, I have treated how to write correct chemical formula of a compound or any compound. So if you were not there, you did not watch it, go and watch and know how to write correct chemical formula of a compound, because without that, you will not be able to answer this question correctly. Number two, calculate the molar mass or relative molecular mass, RMM. In one of my classes, I treated this and I told you RMM stands for relative molecular mass. And the method of calculation is the same with molar mass. The only difference is that molar mass has a unit of gram per mole, whereas relative molecular mass has no unit. Go and watch it. Now, I said calculate the molar mass or relative molecular mass of the compound. You must know how to calculate it correctly for you to be able to attempt this and then get it right. Number three, divide the total mass of the atoms of the element by the molar mass or relative molecular mass of the compound and multiply the answer by 100. That is percentage composition equal to reacting mass of the element all over molar mass of the compound times 100 over 1. So what that means is that if the atom you are trying to calculate the percentage composition in a compound contain two atoms, multiply the atomic mass by 2. If it is 1, just take that one. If it is 3, multiply it by 3. And then have that all over, write it all over the total mass of the whole compound, which means you have to calculate molar mass of that compound. So that the mass of that element will be up, the mass of the whole compound will be down, times 100. Get your answer in percentage. Now, example is given. Calculate the percentage by mass of each element present in copper 2 tetraoxide of the 6. This one, they said we should calculate each element present in copper 2 tetraoxide of the 6. So if you don't know how to write this formula of copper 2 tetraoxide of the 6, you will not be able to calculate. So let's start with the writing of the correct chemical formula. Solution. Now, they said copper 2 tetraoxide of the 6. Remember, I told you in writing any formula, you must remember the cations and their anions. Now, they have mentioned copper. What is the chemical formula for copper? Is Cu. And they have told you that the valency of copper, because copper has more than one valency. So the valency that copper is using in this compound is what? 2. They have mentioned it there. Copper 2 tetraoxide of the 6. So you put 2 under it. And now remember what is tetraoxide of the 6 ion? Is SO4. 2 minus. Remember something like that on the table that I gave you in one of our previous classes. And I said plus and minus may not be considered very important now when I am writing correct chemical formula. Instead, I will bring this down to this place and put under it 2. So from here, I can cross multiply. But before I cross multiply, something can cancel something. I can see that 2 can cancel 2. This is the valency of copper here. 2 cancel itself 1 and 2 cancel itself 1. So now you cross multiply this to this, cross multiply this to this, and that gives you something like this. And you have what? CuSO4. Remember, I said no need to write the 1. Okay, so that is the compound that you are looking for, the chemical formula of copper 2 tetraoxosulfate 6. Having known that, you have written the first, you have passed the first step. The second step is calculate the molar mass or relative molecular mass of the compound. Now, I told you in one of our previous classes that when you want to do this, they have given you the masses. Just sum them up and then get the molar mass of this. Now, this one will now be mass of copper is what? 64. Add that to that of sulfur, which is 32. Add that to that of oxygen. Here you have 16 there times 4. Okay, now multiply this, times 4. Multiply this, and you have 64 plus 32 plus 64. Okay, now the let me use my calculator. 64 plus 32 plus 64 gives me 160. So total is 160. This is the molar mass or relative molecular mass. If I put the unit, it becomes molar mass. If I leave it like this, it becomes relative molecular mass. Now I've gotten 0.2 correctly. Okay, the next is 0.3. 0.3, I will clean the upper part of this and then use it. Okay, now let's see 0.3. I say 0.3, you should do what? Take the total mass of the atom. Now, we want to start with copper. Percentage by mass of each. So I will consider the percentage of copper first. When I am done with that, I will come to percentage of sulfur. When I'm done with that, I will come to percentage of oxygen. So now, Cu, in this formula, the mass of Cu is 64. So I will say 64 percentage of copper equal to 64 all over the total, which is 160 times 100 over 1. And that gives me what? Multiply this, you have 6400 6400 divided by 160. That gives me 40%. So percentage of copper is 40%. Okay, now having gotten that one, let's go for that of sulfur. Percentage of sulfur in that compound is, mass of sulfur is 32 all over 160 times 100 over 1. So if I multiply this, I will have 3200 divided by 160. 160. That gives me 20%. 20%. Okay, we have gotten the one of sulfur. The last one is percentage of oxygen. Percentage of oxygen. Oxygen, how many is 4? You multiply it. This is you. If you use 16, you are wrong because there are 4 there. So you use 16 times 4, which is 64 in that compound. 64 all over 160 times 100 over 1. Now multiply that and divide. 64 times 100 divided by 160. 40. The answer is 40%. Okay, now I've gotten all percentage, the percentage of all of them. So that of copper gives me 40%, that of sulfur gives me 20%, that of oxygen gives me 40%. For me to be very sure whether I am correct with my calculation, because it has to do with percentage. When you are dealing with percentage, you have to be sure that the total of all these percentages will give you 100, because we are talking about 100 now. So 20, 40 plus 40, 80 plus 20, that's what? 100. So we are good to go with our calculation. So now I believe you have enjoyed the lesson, and if more questions of this nature is given, you will be able to answer them. And if you don't, keep watching the previous lessons that I've taught before now for you to be able to cope. Each lesson linked to another lesson. So if you miss out along the line, you will not be able to cope with the subsequent ones that are coming. So please subscribe, watch, share, like this channel, and until we meet again some other time, enjoy yourself.